All right, so thank you so much, Eva, for this chance. This is a really great opportunity for us, and we really welcomed it as the data services team, because we do a lot of things in behind the scenes, and people know about research, but they don't always know about what we can do to help facilitate that research. So welcome. And the goal of today's session is to provide an overview of how researchers and data partners can engage with NB-IRDT when they're seeking to share maybe their data or to access personal or personal health data that's in our custody for research or program evaluation. And like Eva said, my colleagues and I, so Lindsay Gilbert. Lindsay is our data services project coordinator. So we do a lot of projects where we get involved, where we're bringing in data sets from maybe multiple partners, or we're working with multiple jurisdictions to on initiatives. This is the kind of work that Lindsay's really managing and looking after. And Andy Balzer is our data management analyst. And by day, most of the time, Andy is a data analyst. He does the data analytical work on with the research team, but we've also pulled him over to the data services to help with the management questions around data. And I am the privacy officer here, and as Eva said, I look after or sort of manage the team. So what we decided to do is to give you a practical example today. So we've prepared a little scenario and that will hopefully demonstrate an overview of the data lifecycle at NB-IRDT and how data services can bring researchers and data together. So we'll start there. And I've already gotten excited. Okay, so to begin with, before anything, we have to remember what it is that we do here at NB-IRDT and what our purpose is. And we are a research data center. And our role is to make available the administrative data in our secure custody for research access. So that's what it comes down to. And what we're talking about here is administrative data. And as Eva says, and I love this description that she provides, it's the bits and pieces of information that tell the story of an individual's life. So from birth to grade school, through to post-secondary education, employment, eventually death, and many points in between, our information is collected and it's used to provide us with access to services such as education, healthcare, training opportunities, and more. So what we're talking about here is data that might be collected by the regional health authorities or collected by early education and childhood development. So lots of very, very rich data. Look at me getting all excited. So this data is all very necessary for the provision of services and public policy development. And planning, administrative data are composed of a great deal of both personal information and personal health information. And this is really important, and it's why we are so protective of the data, and we want to make sure that we are following the authority we have as a research data center under provincial legislation and are protecting that data. It is often housed in large data sets, large administrative data sets. And this person information, while essential for the public service, it can provide a secondary purpose. And when it's accessed securely and identifying individuals, they're protected, so the data has been made pseudonymous, the databases can provide this researchers with valuable data that can be used to conduct policy relevant and evidence-informed research. So as I mentioned, that all the data that we hold is in a pseudonymous form. And what we're able to do because of that, and this is one of the unique capacities of being a research data center, we are able to link individuals across multiple data sets. And that's what makes it so, the ability to do research here so interesting, and because we have these robust data sets. So we're able to link an individual, perhaps maybe education information with health information, but we don't know who the individual is because their identity has been protected. And that's what makes it so interesting. And so the role of NB-IRDT and the Data Services Team is to bring researchers and administrative data together. Won't get into that. So what we're able to do is provide support through the data lifecycle. And so what I mean by that is that all data has a starting point. We begin with data collection. And so at NB-IRDT, data collection is the work that goes into receiving data sets or having them shared with us from data business owners. And we establish data sharing agreements to hold their data. We make sure that everything is held in secure custody. We follow the terms of these agreements. And that is how data is collected here at NB-IRDT. The next step in the life cycle is that once it's in our secure custody, researchers can apply to have access to that data. And they have to follow a series of administrative safeguards. And that includes the review of the project application. You know, why do they want to access the data? What is the research that they want to conduct? You know, do they really need access to this particular data? There's a user approval steps that are followed. So we do everything. Lindsay's going to speak a little bit more to that. And we also seek input from the data business owners. They sit on a committee where they have a say in how the data is going to be used. The third step in the administrative data lifecycle is usage. And this is when we have that opportunity for the data in our secure custody. We make sure that it's prepared for use. We make sure that before the user has access to it, that it is in a format that is ready for them. And we are implementing a growing data management program right now at NB-IRDT. And that includes checking the data sets for quality and developing code books. And of course, all data usage happens within the secure research environment. And what we mean by that here at NB-IRDT presently, our secure research environment is a physical environment. You must physically come to the institute to access the data. And then the next part of the data lifecycle is dissemination. And this is the point where the researchers have followed the safeguards in place and they're ready to release their findings. And so they don't just, you know, pop out of the data center. What happens is they submit a proposal for the data they'd like to have disclosed, and it goes through a vetting process to make sure that the data is still protected. And so some of the practices we follow are like releasing only aggregate results. And then finally, all data has an end. It has a disposition. And I love that expression because I think of all this data with a really bad attitude or a bad disposition. And basically, in the end, what happens is that we often will store data for a significant amount of time. And then we have to securely dispose of it because we know that data that lies around is just waiting for rediscovery. And so that's a really bad practice. And so we build that in as a safeguard into all our practices. So eventually data that is held in our secure custody will be destroyed, project folders, I should say. And then that would be the end of the life cycle. So then what we thought, okay, how can we explain how we can help you? That's terribly said, but I think you're getting the point here, is we want to make sure that people understand the services that we can provide. And so we have created this scenario that I'm going to lay out for you, and hopefully you'll find it somewhat interesting. And I have to tell you, if you're some of our colleagues with the government, finding a nice neutral post-election scenario is not easy. So bear with us, use your imaginations a little bit on this, okay? Please don't judge us on this one. So we have our Deputy Minister. This is Deputy Minister Endeavour. And Deputy Minister Endeavour, she has been really listening to the folks in the province. And she's been hearing questions. And one of the things that she's been hearing about are senior citizens. And senior citizens are looking for more opportunities post-retirement. So she wants to address this. So it becomes a policy issue for the deputy. And so what the deputy does, of course, being a good deputy, she turns to her policy people. So Logan and Preston, this is her research team. And she says to them, you know, what are we going to do about this opportunity? So Logan and Preston are good policy analysts. So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to turn that policy issue into a research question. And so they ask themselves, how many senior citizens are enrolled in post-secondary education in New Brunswick? So maybe there's opportunities there for them. And so this is the setup to our scenario. And I'm going to turn things over to Lindsay now. And Lindsay's going to sort of explain how, or start the explanation. And then Andy will pick up where Lindsay leaves off. And hopefully we'll walk you through the data lifecycle working with the data services team.
Thank you, Donna. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So the data collection stage, as Donna pointed out during her explanation of the data lifecycle, involves making sure that researchers have all of the data they need to complete their research project. Data services can help researchers if they're unsure whether NB-IRDT has all the data they need to answer that research question. If researchers are doing their own data collection, data services can also offer guidance on obtaining proper consent in order to link to administrative data later after that data is collected. When data is needed that NB-IRDT does not already hold, NB-IRDT enters into a data sharing agreement with a data business owner or custodian. For example, for Logan and Preston's project, NB-IRDT might enter into a data sharing agreement with post-secondary schools to share data on student enrollment, programs of study, etc. The NB-IRDT Data Transfer Coordinator also works with prospective partners to establish these data sharing agreements and supports them throughout each step of the agreement preparation. There are two options for data sharing at NB-IRDT that we wanted to tell you about. The first option is that NB-IRDT can serve as a data custodian. Because we are a research data center, provincial legislation allows us to take on this role. As data custodians, we can enter into data sharing agreements to hold data on our platform and make it available for research use. And this allows projects to link to other data sets. Part of our role as data custodians is to enter into data access agreements with researchers to ensure that they will follow the terms of data access. The second option is that NB-IRDT can serve as an information manager. This means that we hold data in our secure custody for the data business owner specific use with no linking to other data held on our platform. For this option, NB-IRDT and the data business owner would enter into an information manager agreement, which includes completing a statement of work. A researcher might use this option if they need to conduct analysis on sensitive data that they own, but they don't have access to their own secure research environment. Logan and Preston can get started by checking out the resources on data holdings that are available on the NB-IRDT website. And here you'll see a preview of what you'll see when you browse our data holdings. Part of our role as the data services team is to make sure that the information is as up to date and complete as possible on the website so everyone has timely access to it. Logan and Preston, in this case, would see that post-secondary data is available at NB-IRDT for the years that they would like to study, and now they are ready to apply for access to data. So when data access occurs, our data access coordinator will guide Preston and Logan throughout the data access request process from beginning to end. And that goes from feasibility to assigned data access agreement. You can see here, this is the first page of our data access request form. And I won't go into great detail about the data access request process just because our data access coordinator is so lovely with helping everybody through in a comprehensive fashion. There's lots of information about the process on the data access section of our website. And just like the data transfer coordinator, the data access coordinator will guide applicants through every step. So in our scenario, Logan and Preston's data access agreement is now signed, and the data services team has provided them with a complete orientation, which includes privacy training, security training, and lab orientation. So now they're ready to proceed to data use, which Andy will tell you more about.
Thanks, Lindsay. The data we receive at NB-IRDT comes to us from a variety of sources and is used for a variety of purposes. Therefore, NB-IRDT processes the data files to ensure they are ready for research use. We call this process data onboarding and includes the development of data documentation, such as codebooks. Once an approved user has gone through the data access request process, they will receive access to the secure research environment where they can access the data requested in the data access request. Donna mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but we define the secure research environment as the physical space where approved users can access data while ensuring privacy. At this point, the research work can begin. Logan and Preston have recently been approved to begin work in the secure research environment. It's an exciting time for them. Logan and Preston have finished their analysis, and the results are shocking. Turns out the number of senior citizens attending post-secondary school in New Brunswick drops off significantly after the year 2016. This coincides with a New Brunswick policy change around that same time, which made it harder for senior citizens to obtain student loans. Interesting. Logan and Preston have double-checked the results thoroughly and are sure the results they're getting are accurate. Now it's time for Deputy Minister Endeavour to know. So, what is the process for data dissemination at NB-IRDT? When approved users have results that are ready to release from the secure research environment, the process begins with a submission of a disclosure request. The database administrator will then work with the approved users to ensure the results meet the vetting requirements before releasing those results. This process is also described during the user orientation as part of the data access request process. Logan and Preston have released results from the secure research environment and have prepared a report based on those results. However, before the result report can be published, it needs to go to the Data Access and Research Committee, formed by data business owners for a 30-day embargo review. This embargo review period ensures a final review happens before publishing. To initiate the embargo review process, Logan and Preston will send their finished research product to our data access coordinator.
Okay, and I'll pick it back up there. So when the embargo period concludes, Logan and Preston are going to present the report to Deputy Minister Endeavour. The Deputy Minister will combine these learnings from the data in the report with additional information to make an evidence-informed policy decision. She proposes to reinstate student loan programming for seniors. To give a little more information about our data disposition process, when results have been released and data access is no longer needed, the data access coordinator will facilitate project closure. After project closure, data services will store the project files for 3 years. In case Logan and Preston would need to come back and verify results or check their methodology, the project files will be available to be restored within that 3-year window. The syntax, which is the programming code, is saved for an additional 7 years. When it's time to dispose of the data, data services returns or destroys the data depending on what the partner has requested in the data sharing agreements. I'll hand it back over to Donna.
Thank you, Lindsay. So really what we've done there is we've walked you through the entire, very quickly, the data life cycle and the steps that have to happen along the way. Now we've presented it in less than 20 minutes and I can assure you it does take us a little bit longer than that in real life. So, but really what we wanted to point out is that we're here, we're available. And even though all the steps might seem daunting or there's a lot of steps there, they're all safeguards that help protect the data and help protect the researchers, and it allows us to stay operational. And so just to introduce the team, by sort of just a general way to do it here, we thought we would Afton Levine is our data access coordinator. So usually one of the first points of contact when you send out a message. Then Megan Pike, she's the data transfer coordinator. So particularly for data business owners or researchers who want to share a data set or something for the particular project, that would be Megan who you would be working with. You met Andy already, so he helps us with around data management issues. Then there's myself. And we also have Ziquan Liu, who's our database administrator. And it's Ziquan who is going to be the person who puts your project folder together, brings in the variables to make sure that everything is there for you so that when you enter the facility, you can do the work. And we're growing all the time. And we have this non-pictured person here, and Harshal Vakaria is actually located in St. John with Horizon Health. And we included him here because he's an honorary member of our team. He's a data development coordinator. And so this is an example of how we work with data partners to help build data sets that can be shared with us. So although he works with Horizon, we bring him to our meetings so he knows what's happening at NB-IRDT, and he has a voice at the table when we're making decisions. And then Lindsay, who you've met as well, who is our project coordinator, and Nicholas Lorade, who actually helps us. You can imagine we have tons of documentation and processes and policies that are going on all the time, as well as we're conducting research in the area of privacy and data governance. And so Nick is our coordinator in that area. And our final sort of last bit is contact information for you. And we want to highlight 2 email addresses. And if you remember nothing else today, remember the first email address here, and that's NB-IRDT data@umb.ca. And if you send a message to that, it goes into our ticketing system. You'll get an immediate reply that says, thank you for your email, and we're on it. And we monitor that constantly, and we try to respond as soon as we can. And the advantage to that is you might not be sure if your question is really a data access question or a data transfer question. So if you use that generic email address, you'll go to the right person and you'll get a response right away. And then we also have the data access request email, which is when you're ready for your application to submit your application. And there'll be a lot of going back and forth with the coordinator on that. So we have a designated email address for that as well, which is NB-IRDT DAR, which is data access request. So at umb.ca. And then finally, if all else fails, email NB-IRDT, -IRDT@umb.ca. Just, reach out to anyone here, because that's the point, is we really do want to facilitate that link between researchers and access, or data business owners who want to share their data for research or for program evaluation. And our website, we mentioned it, if this is the link to the website. If you do a Google UMB NB-IRDT, you will get our website. We really, there's a lot of information there. Our data sets are listed there, information, all of our policies and procedures around data practices, data security, data privacy are listed there. Lots of information to find. And if you don't find it, send us an email. So we